IoT Unplugged, where we talk to industry leaders, innovators, and major players in the Internet of Things, bringing you the best and latest insights. Tune in to learn more. In this episode, I speak to Kal Shadam, SVP Sales EMEA at EnOcean, as he provides me with a glimpse into the smart building market, sharing the key technology enablers and drivers of growth. Hi Kal, thank you so much for joining me on the IoT Unplugged podcast. Could you start by giving a quick introduction to who you are and what you do?
Hi, Caitlin. Thanks, and thanks for having us on here. I'm Kal Shadam. I head up the sales organisation at EnOcean across EMEA. Yeah, I've been in the industry for probably too long to want to imagine, but probably in the smart building space for around about 15 years. Prior to that, I was again in tech sales, more telco related. So all in all, in technology sales, so over 25 years of experience. I've been with EnOcean coming up to 3 years now. But that was through an acquisition that EnOcean made. So my continuous employment within the organisations is about 6.5 years, but 3 with EnOcean.
And could you introduce the company as well?
Yeah, so EnOcean's a technology company. It's based in Munich, in Germany. We started off in 2001, and we provide wireless sensors and sensor technology, all built around ultra-low power energy harvesting. And I can talk about energy harvesting in a little bit while. So what we do is we make some of the modules and the components that go inside a wireless IoT sensor. And we have a small range of what we call finished goods or sensors that we produce ourselves. So we work with a few hundred different manufacturers who build their products using EnOcean technology. The beauty of EnOcean is that it's an open standard. It's a wireless protocol that's been published and is an open standard. It's interoperable with different manufacturers, so it avoids any of that sort of proprietary nature, working with sort of open standards and interoperability across different brands. So yeah, we've been going since 2001. As I mentioned, and one of our sort of, let's say, USPs is we developed what we call energy harvesting technology. What that means today is, the devices can power themselves through their environmental surroundings. There's 4 main types of energy harvesting that we generally sort of work on. One is we use kinetic energy. So things like switches, light switches, etc. So you press the button on the light switch, it generates a small amount of kinetic energy, which sends a signal to the light to switch on, switch off its blinds. You can open and close the blinds, etc. So that's the first one. The second one is we use solar power. So there's specialist solar cells which power the devices. So providing there's a small amount of light in the room, it doesn't have to be natural light. It can be artificial light as well, and enough to power the devices. And once those devices are fully charged, they can run in complete darkness for several days. The third one is we use temperature differentials. So the difference in temperature can power a device. So, for example, it's typically used in, let's say, radiator valves. So think of the thermostatic radiator valves that you have at home. There's smart radiator valves, and as long as there's, I think it's 4 degrees or 4 Kelvin difference between the hot water in the pipe and the ambient temperature of the room, it's enough to power that device to, again, send signals to switch the valve on, off, etc. And then the fourth one we tend to use is electromagnetic fields. This is mainly used in energy monitoring. So if you take an energy clamp or a CT clamp, you clamp this around the cable of the energy of the device that you want to, or the circuit that you want to measure, and the electromagnetic field around that cable is enough to power that device. So it's completely wireless and also batteryless as well. We're a sustainable company. We very much sustainability is very much in our DNA, and we don't really want to use batteries.
Yeah, and as I understand it, energy harvesting has become really important when we look at smart buildings, right? Because as you just mentioned, you don't need a battery; it can be wireless, and with that, it's opened up a lot of growth. And so it'd be great to pick your brains on what you're seeing in the smart building market today. What are the main drivers?
Yeah, absolutely. These just touching back on the no batteries piece as well. First and foremost, before I answer your other question, is there's a maintenance element as well. So think about all the time that can be saved by not having to replace batteries. I think there was some statistics saying for every 10,000 battery powered devices, you'd have to employ one person full time just to change batteries. So yeah, there's it takes a lot of this from our perspective, the sustainability elements. But going back to your question around what are the key drivers? One of them is legislation. There's a lot of legislation around globally, but if we look at ESG is one of them, and especially around the E and a little bit of the S, around the environmental. Companies can't just say that we're doing something about ESG. They've got to now prove it. They've got to show an audit trail. So being able to provide that data and that details to allow them to build their reports is a key driver. There's legislation changes like the EPBD, which is the Energy Performance Building Directive. That's all around sort of monitoring energy in a building, monitoring air quality in spaces, and obviously the net zero goals that corporations have are all driving movement and growth within this sort of space. The other sort of areas which we see drivers, which we see sort of driving some of this sort of growth is organisations are looking for operational efficiencies. We have to try and do less with, we have to do more with less. So being able to get that sort of granularity of how I'm using my buildings being used, how my space is being used, how many people are in certain spaces. They can then sort of program their sort of HVAC systems that control the heating, the ventilation, etc., based on occupancy rather than on standard historic schedules. So that's another area that's driving growth. People want to be able to sort of have better processes, understanding what space I've got, how it's being used. Can I repurpose that space? Can I resize that? Can I dispose of it? So all of these areas, I believe, are driving growth. And the final one, especially post-COVID, and I know it's been sort of 5 years since COVID, but a lot more organizations are looking at sort of hybrid working for those same reasons. We don't have to be in an office 5 days a week, 9 to 5 anymore. We can be a bit more sort of flexible. So again, understanding how space is being used, how people are coming into the office to make sure that they've got the best experience when they are in the office, but not oversizing it and being able to repurpose some of the space they've got. And furthermore, provide a sort of a healthier, safer environment in terms of air quality for them to be as productive as possible.
To this point you're making about how companies are perhaps more interested in understanding how the space is being used rather than just applying a generic, we're going to have this many people in the office, so we need to have the lights on at this time and this time. Because as you mentioned, we are living in a post-COVID world. Shudder to think that was 5 years ago, and as a result of that, hybrid working is much more the norm. So from your experience, would you say companies are just much more interested in having maybe a more custom approach than a generic solution across the board, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I think it is. Custom sometimes means it's not scalable, but I think what they are trying to understand is, um, you know, how is my space being used. So I'll give you an example. Typically, pre-COVID, an organization had 10,000 employees, they'd have 10,000 desks for those employees. Now, if you look at the cost of a desk for an employee, and I'm talking about real estate costs, floor space, FM costs, etc., not the actual cost of the employee, typically between 8 and 10,000 euros per year per desk. Now, if those desks aren't being used on a regular basis, then there's a significant saving that that organization can make in terms of a right sizing their office environment. We're not trying to give, we're not trying to take away sort of desks for people, but if they're not in the office 5 days a week and every day, then they can look at what they've got. So, they can resize their space if needed. They don't have to then heat, light, cool, and clean those spaces if people aren't using those spaces. So it's just trying to give them better granularity. And essentially, I mean, taking a university for example, if you've got a lecture theatre that caters for 500 people, but on a regular basis, there's only ever 100 people in that sort of space. Do we really need an auditorium that size? Because it's going to cost more to heat, light, cool, clean that space. But also, you can then maybe think, well, with that space, I may be able to create 2 or 3 lecture theatres, or I can repurpose some of that space. So this is the kind of conversations I'm having with organisations and helping them on their journey.
Mm-hmm. Sure. No, really good point there. So why don't we then move on to some of the technology enablers? At the start, you mentioned sensors. It's obviously a really big one, but it would just be great to get an overview from you of what those are.
Yeah, typically, obviously, sensors will provide you that granularity of data, but that data's got to go somewhere. And typically, where you've got wireless sensors, you have to install gateways to be able to collect that data. That data then needs to be, let's say, normalized or converted into a format that is easily interpreted or ingested by an application, whether that's a dashboard or an energy analytics platform or whatever. The way EnOcean works, we've got sort of solutions for all of those sort of cases. Where we've really seen a lot of growth is leveraging some of the existing infrastructure in a building, such as the Wi-Fi networks. We have partnerships with the likes of HP and Aruba and Cisco, where you don't have to then install gateways because that's an additional cost, more wiring, more labor, etc., more vulnerability as well. So we can leverage the existing Wi-Fi infrastructure. We plug in one of our USB radio dongles into the Wi-Fi, and it creates this EnOcean network across the building. So it's from a security perspective, it's secure because it's locked down by all the organization's IT policies and the IT infrastructure, and we can collect that data, and that sends that data to our cloud application where we do all of that sort of data processing, data normalization, data abstraction, and we can serve that data to any third-party application if the organization's got their own platforms that they want to use, or we can serve them up with our own dashboards, etc.
Would you say that's a common approach to utilize existing infrastructure, or does it very much vary across the board?
It's not so common. A lot of people are still installing gateways, but we're seeing a lot more sort of traction now, and I would say we're in a fairly unique position in being able to leverage the infrastructure. Through Aruba or Cisco, and that again that removes the need for gateways. The other thing is the IT departments like us because doing it that way they're in control of the network. Whereas where you have, let's say, third-party IoT gateways on an IT network, then the IT guys see that as vulnerability, and it sort of increases that sort of attack surface when it comes to sort of cybersecurity. And then from a deployment perspective, it's very, very simple. Scan a QR code on the sensor, set up the access points to enable the EnOcean data, and away you go. And it just makes deployment of this very, very easy, very, very simple, and very, very quick.
Which I think is a really good segue then into my next question, which is how you see cybersecurity requirements influencing what's happening in smart buildings. You just mentioned IT departments don't want to add new devices onto the network if they have to. Is there anything else you've observed?
Yeah, I mean it's a really, really good point, and it's a very, very hot topic. And there's two elements to this, and I'll give you a bit of a sort of take on this. So one you've got from a device manufacturer, from the sensor manufacturer. So there's certain legislation that's being introduced, like the Cyber Resilience Act, etc. So sensor manufacturers need to make sure that their devices are secure. Um, by that, I mean, obviously having end-to-end encryption from that sort of data flow, being able to do over-the-air updates, etc. So all this is very, very important from a device manufacturer. And then you've got the data piece. So leveraging the existing infrastructure, which is, based on most organizations have got pretty strict IT policies. So we will sort of dovetail into those because we become part of that IT infrastructure as opposed to something that's bolted on. So it makes life a lot easier, simpler, and more importantly, more secure in terms of that data processing, data transfer.
I think I would be surprised if not all companies didn't have some degree of cybersecurity hygiene or posturing, as you term it. So for sure, something that always needs to be thought about. And I think with the introduction of the PSTI Act in the UK, the hope is certainly that companies won't go out buying sensors that don't uphold those standards. And I think that's kind of the purpose of acts like those from what we've seen, and hopefully we'll keep those buildings secure.
Absolutely, and I say, as devices are being more and more devices are getting connected, that means there's more and more vulnerabilities. So we have to work together as an industry to make sure that those those vulnerabilities and those risks are mitigated properly to ensure that companies stay safe when it comes to cyber attacks.
Definitely. So, Kal, you mentioned working with, I believe it was HB Aruba and Cisco. Could you share some customer case studies of companies you've worked with using the magic of energy harvesting?
Yeah, absolutely. There's quite a lot, and what I'll do is I've got a few organisations that working with Aruba. We've done a project leveraging the existing infrastructure for Credit Agricole, which is the French bank. So we did a trial there. They wanted to optimise their meeting room usage. Their goal was to save around 15% in that sort of usage of meeting rooms, to be able to understand better how they're using it and to be able to optimize that space. And the trials that we did with them were quite successful, and we've met their initial targets and probably sort of superseded them. There is sort of case studies, published case studies available on our website at EnOcean.com if anyone wants to go and have a look at those. We also worked with a global sports brand. I'm not allowed to mention the name publicly, but they wanted to understand how their rooms were being used and how their desks were being used. So the primary use case is room occupancy and desk occupancy. There's around about 10,000 sensors been installed across various sites. It's over 200,000 square meters of office space, and we've reduced their space by 15%. Which again is a significant saving when you sort of factor in the cost of desk and space and etc. Other sort of customers we're sort of working with, we're sort of early stages. We currently started some proof of value, proof of concepts with the University of Cardiff. We're also started one with the University of Szeged in Hungary. We've got working with a large independent school in London, as well. And this is all leveraging the Wi-Fi infrastructure. There's a couple of hospitals that we're also working with alongside Cisco. And then other sort of success stories is there's a really large commercial building right by Frankfurt Airport. It's called the Square. There's over 20,000 EnOcean devices been installed in that across. We work very closely with IBM global real estate team, so they're kitting out their offices for desk usage, air quality. We've done a number of offices with them. And then another really interesting one, which we've not really touched about, is around asset tracking and asset tracking use cases. So, we acquired a software company last year that specializes in asset tracking solutions, and a really good sort of reference site for us is Amsterdam Schiphol Airport, where we're tracking a lot of all of the passenger wheelchairs and the caddies and passenger trolleys. Again, it's all about operational efficiencies, making sure those passengers with reduced mobility are being serviced efficiently, understanding where those wheelchairs are, making sure they're in the right place at the right time to be able to get those passengers through the airport. So that's just a small handful of success stories that I can share. As I said, there's lots more on our website and also on the EnOcean Alliance website as well, which will go through various success stories and reference cases.
Great. Well, thank you for that overview, Kal. With everything that we've spoken about, I guess what would be good for us to do next is to cast our eye into the future and see where you see the most growth potential over the next 5 years for the smart building market.
That's a great question. Some great questions here, Caitlin. When I look about where do we see the growth from our perspective, we're looking at certain verticals which we're seeing a lot of interest and a lot of growth. Education sector is one, especially the university space. Universities, it's a competitive environment. It's a competitive landscape for them. It's very costly for somebody to go to university now with the university fees and accommodations, etc. So universities want to make sure that they are, at the forefront of any sort of technology advances, making sure that they're an attractive proposition for anybody. But then ensuring those people that do attend, the students, they provide them with the best spaces, best air quality from a well-being perspective, and being able to manage their estates more efficiently. So education is one. Another one is obviously the corporate real estate and general sort of office space. We see a lot of sort of growth in this space. There's a lot of building stock out there that is not what we call smart or smarter, and getting those buildings up to a certain level. One, for the occupants, providing a much better working environment, but for those property owners and the real estate companies, is they want to make sure that they can maximise their rents. And being able to rent out those spaces to the best organisations and command the best returns. So ensuring that their buildings are again smarter, and being able to dictate the best rents for those buildings. On the flip side of that, if buildings aren't smart, they will struggle to lease those buildings out.
Because of the expectation and some of the needs that we discussed at the start of the podcast.
No, absolutely, and I think people are getting a lot more choosier as well of where they work. So for all those organisations want to attract the best talent, they've got to have the best spaces for that talent. Another space for us is we see airports, especially on asset tracking solutions. We work with a lot of airports globally, and we're seeing a huge growth and demand, understanding where their assets are. And then, healthcare is another one. Hospitals, big users of energy, understanding air quality to ensure environmental conditions are at the optimum from a well-being perspective. And also understanding where their assets are. So, obviously wheelchairs, beds, medical equipment, being able to track those and understand where those are, so people aren't wasting time looking for them, and they can spend more time with their patients and getting them through the system.
Great. Well, thank you for giving us that overview and brief glimpse into the smart buildings market. Before we wrap up, is there anything else you want to mention to our listeners?
Not really. I just want to thank them for taking the time to listen to us. If they are interested to learn more, feel free to reach out. We are hosting our annual EnOcean Alliance Summit in Frankfurt this year. It's the 24th and 25th of September. If anyone needs any details, reach out to me and I can provide them. It's free to register, free to attend. It will be great to see as many people there as possible to learn more about this.
Sounds good. Well, thank you so much for joining me, Kal. I really enjoyed our conversation.
Likewise, and thanks again, Caitlin, for letting me participate in this session.
IoT Unplugged.